to the Football for Kids podcast with me, Darren Rees. And welcome to a brand new episode on a player who's had his fair share of knockbacks and setbacks, but he is now Arsenal's number 10. He is ripping up the Premier League and is doing some wonderful things, but it was some journey to get there. Of course, in this episode, we're going to be speaking about no other than Eberechi Eze. Before we get into this episode properly, a few shout outs to do for you brilliant listeners. The first one is for Fred, who plays for Harpenden Colts under-8 Scorpions. He's a big Arsenal fan, unlike his parents who are Crewe Alexandra fans. And I know, Fred, that me and your dad were exactly the same game a couple of years ago at Wembley when Crewe and Crawley battered it out for a position in League One. Anyway, Fred, a massive shout out to you and a huge thank you to your dad for his support. Right then. The next one says, "Hi Darren, my name is Abel, I live on the Isle of Wight and I play for Ventor Volts under 9s. Can I please have a shout out to all my coaches and my teammates? I'd love to hear an episode on Luis Diaz if possible. Thank you, I love your podcast. Me and my mum listen to it every single night. She supports Liverpool and I support Arsenal, but really we just love watching football, any match and practicing in the back garden. It's my birthday on the 10th of November and I'll probably play football with my mates all day." Well, Abel, a massive shout out to you. A big thanks for being a super listener on Patreon. It is just you super listeners on Patreon and on Apple Podcast subscription who are keeping the podcast going and flowing. Thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful season. It is so nice to hear that you and your mum listen to the podcast every single night. As an Arsenal fan, I really hope that you enjoy this episode. And lastly, I know it's one of our Football for Kids listeners' birthdays coming up, and that listener goes by the name of Joe, who is turning 10 years old on the 21st of October. Joe is a massive Chelsea fan and a top player for his team, Blackburn Eagles. I hope you have a really good birthday on the 21st of October, Joe. Thank you so much for being a listener of the podcast. I hope you have a wonderful season, a brilliant birthday, and I really hope that you enjoy this episode. Right then, let's get into it, shall we? On a man who's been there and done it. The tough way, the hard way, the setback way. But he's now the Arsenal number 10 and shining like the brightest star in the sky in the Premier League. And he goes by the name of Eberechi Eze. Eze was born in Greenwich in London on the 29th of June 1998. His story connects to a much bigger one, the story of many Nigerian families who came to the UK to build a new life. Eze's parents are Nigerian. Like lots of people who arrived in London in the 1980s, they came to work, study and find new chances. They worked long hours and really put the work in. Eze's dad worked in restaurants and studied hard. The family lived in areas like Southwark and Lewisham, where many Nigerian families built communities. Eze grew up mainly with his mum, and he has said so many times that she was the one who kept him going. Her strength and belief helped shape who he is today. Even Eze's name means something special. Eberechi is a name which means mercy of God. That meaning became really important later on in life when football got tough and he had to lean on his faith to keep going. Eze fell in love with football in South London near the old Greenwich Hospital. He grew up on a busy council estate where you could smell a combination of foods drifting through the air, where you could hear buses rumbling past and kids shouting from every corner. Life wasn't fancy, it was about making the best of what you had. And for Eze, that meant a football at his feet almost all the time. The real magic happened in what Eze calls the small yellow cage. It was a fenced-off court in his estate, a tiny patch of ground surrounded by metal bars that rattled every single time the ball hit them. The air was filled with echoes of laughter, arguments about fouls or whether it went in or not, and the thud of footballs hitting the wall. By the time Eze was 5 or 6 years old, he was turning up at local community sessions, grinning from ear to ear, just happy to be there and playing. Soon after, he found his first set of grassroots teams in South London, and it wasn't long after that the scouts started to really notice him. He would train for hours, often without stopping to eat, playing until the lights from the nearby flats flickered on, Jumpers were used as goalposts, friends with the teammates and the rivals, and that cage is exactly where many dreams were born. Eze once said that those cages were classrooms of resilience. That's where he learned to move fast, twist out of tight spaces, and take on anyone, one against one or one against everyone. He was up for it all. Because his parents were so busy working and studying, the street became a bit of a teacher. The freedom, the chaos of the football and the games, the noise, the creativity shaped the way that he played. It made him daring, it made him joyful, it made him Eze. But that same freedom also brought a bit of a challenge. When he began playing in proper academies, his street-style tricks and free-flowing dribbles sometimes clashed with the strict rules of organised football. The game he had built and imagination didn't always fit into the boxes that coaches were looking for. At 8 years old, Eze was playing in the Arsenal academy and playing at every opportunity which he got. He was so proud to be an Arsenal player. And then, at just 13 years old, in 2011, Eze faced a moment every young player dreads. Arsenal let him go. He remembered that day so very clearly. It was one of the hardest battles I've ever had, he said. I had tears rolling down my face. For a boy who had proudly told everyone that he played for Arsenal, I no longer did. He said it was a huge chunk of my identity that was just gone, ripped out of my hands. But that was only the start. Eze didn't give up. He tried again. First at Fulham, then to Reading. Each time he was let go, he was stung harder and harder, but he kept on going, holding on to that dream, holding on to that thought that somewhere, someone would believe in him. Next came Millwall. He joined as a youth player and signed a 2-year scholarship. He was quick, clever and full of flair. He worked his way up through the under-18s and the reserve teams, and it looked like this might finally be his breakthrough. But then came another heartbreak. It's said that Millwall decided not to offer him a professional contract and told him he'd be leaving at the end of the 2015-16 season. Another door was shut in Eze's face. Across all of those clubs, coaches kept saying the same kind of thing, that Eze didn't show enough desire or application. But that wasn't true. Deep down, no one wanted it more than him. He said, I probably should have tried to adapt, but all I was trying to do is get the ball and enjoy myself. That was the problem, or maybe the beauty of Eze's football. It was a painful few years for him, rejection after rejection, and each one chipped away at his confidence, which is only natural. But those setbacks, even though he didn't realise it at the time, were getting him ready for the comeback. By 2016, when Millwall had let him go, Eze felt completely worn out. Physically, he was drained. Emotionally, he was broken. He had spent years chasing a dream that kept slipping away. First Arsenal, then Fulham, then Reading, now Millwall. Every time he picked himself up, he believed in himself again, the door was shut in his face. This time, he wasn't sure he could go on any further. He told himself he would stop chasing football and just start a normal life. He planned to enroll at a local college and work part-time at Tesco's. Just an ordinary job, stacking shelves, earning money, and moving on from the heartbreak. It wasn't a big dramatic moment, it was quiet and heavy. For the first time in his life, he wasn't a footballer. He was just Eze, a teenager standing at a crossroads, wondering what to do. That was the lowest point. The dream was gone, and yet somewhere deep inside, the fire hadn't completely gone out. Well, so far, the journey has been full of ups, but mainly downs. And after this, we'll get back to the story, and hopefully, a turning point. We'll be back in a mo. This Christmas, something magical has arrived for Football for Kids listeners all around the world. For the very first time ever, the Football Time Machine limited edition collector's frame is here. Each one is signed and numbered by me, Darren Rees, and only 250 of them will ever exist. Inside every frame is a golden QR code, and that is where the magic begins. That golden QR code unlocks 3 special things. The first and only video podcast I've ever made, a kids versus adults play along with 3 exclusive games that you can play at home, and a brand new audio story, Teddy and the Tale of the Football Time Machine. The frame will look incredible wherever you listen to the podcast in your home. There are only 250 of these special Christmas releases that will ever make it out. So if you want to own a piece of Football for Kids history and give a lucky listener a very special present, please email darren@footballforkidspodcast.com and you will receive an email instantly telling you how you can get your hands on one. The Football Time Machine. Once they're gone, they are gone. Just when it looked like the story was over, something incredible happened. In August 2016, Eberechi Eze was getting ready to start college and work part-time at Tesco. The phone rang. It was Queen's Park Rangers, QPR, the West London team. They wanted to give him a chance. It felt almost too good to be true. After all those rejections, after all that pain, someone could finally believe in him again. QPR's director of football Les Ferdinand and coach Chris Ramsey saw something others had missed. That spark, that creativity, that joy that had always made Eze special. They didn't try to change who he was, they encouraged it. That phone call changed everything. Eze joined QPR and turned professional. The club's faith in him was like a lifeline, pulling him out of the darkness and back into a world where he truly belonged, on a football pitch. At Queen's Park Rangers, everything changed for Eze. He was handed the number 10 shirt, the shirt worn by playmakers, creators and dreamers. It was a big sign of trust, a message from the club to say, "We believe in you." The manager built the team around him, well, so it seemed he did. He told his players, "Give Eze the ball, let him express himself, he'll do some wonderful things." It was the total opposite of what Eze had experienced in the previous years. No one told him to stop dribbling or to keep it simple. At QPR, his creativity wasn't a problem. It was a part of the plan. That freedom brought out the best in him. He started gliding across the pitch of a style all of his own. Smooth, calm and unpredictable. It was very Eze. QPR coach Paul Hall gave him the nickname the Drunken Master after a 1979 martial arts movie. The name was linked to him because of one of Eze's signature moves. A loose, lazy drop of the shoulder that made defenders wobble and fall the wrong way. The coach said it was lazy and a bit weird, but it worked almost all the time. That movement became his trademark, a mix of rhythm, balance and mischief. For the first time, Eze was in the right place, surrounded by the right people, who didn't just allow his flair, they celebrated it. By the 2019-2020 season, everything that Eze had been working on was finally coming together. He wasn't just playing well, he was shining. That year, he scored 14 goals and set up another 8 for QPR. Every match felt like a showcase of his magic. Quick turns, silky dribbles, and goals that made fans leap out of their seats. The sort of thing that players all over the world dream of. All that hard work, all that rejection, all those long days in that yellow cage had led to this. His incredible performances didn't go unnoticed. He won QPR Player of the Year and Players Player of the Year, and he was named in the Championship Team of the Year. And then in the summer of 2020, Crystal Palace knew all about Eze, and they wanted him with that eagle on his chest. He was signed and then he was playing at Selhurst Park. The fans saw straight away what made him special. The dazzling footwork, the smooth control, the creativity that made him look like he was dancing with the ball. Reporters called him a trickster and a con man on the ball. Not in a negative way, but because of the way that he twisted, turned and slipped past defenders as if he'd vanished into thin air. All that stuff developed in the cage was coming to fruition. His first season was strong, full of energy and promise, but then came heartbreak once again. During the 21-22 season, he suffered a serious injury that kept him out for several months. For a player who loved to run, move and play freely, the recovery was brutal. Eze later said that this was probably one of the hardest bits of his career. The loneliness, the waiting, the feeling that everything had stopped, especially after all of those knockbacks. But Eze wasn't the same boy who once cried after being released by Arsenal. And trust me, there's nothing wrong with that. All those early rejections had built a quiet strength inside him. This time, he faced pain differently. He said he grew, not just as a football player, but much more as a person. By the 2024-25 season, he was back to his brilliant best. In the FA Cup semi-final against Aston Villa, he opened the scoring with a stunning long-range goal and Palace won 3-0. Then came the final, May 17th, 2025, Crystal Palace versus Manchester City. The 16th minute came, and who was there with a first-time volley? Need I say it? When the whistle blew, history was made. Crystal Palace had won the FA Cup, and Eze was the hero. The boy who nearly gave up football had delivered for his club in the most crucial of moments. The story didn't stop there though. Months later, Palace beat Liverpool in the 2025-26 Community Shield after a dramatic penalty shootout. Another trophy, another celebration, another chapter in this incredible story of Eze's. From that yellow cage in Greenwich to the steps of Wembley, Eze's story has come full circle. Proof that belief, faith, and joy in what you love can turn even the toughest journeys into something completely unforgettable. And then, in August 2025, 14 years after that heartbreaking day when he was told he wasn't good enough for Arsenal, Eze walked back through the doors of Arsenal Football Club. 14 years. He was no longer the tearful boy clutching a dream. He was one of the Premier League's most electrifying players, signing for an incredible amount of money. It was a transfer that didn't just make headlines, it healed old wounds. The club that once let him go was now paying a record fee to bring him home. It was football's full circle, a story written in patience, pain and purpose. This deal didn't just reward Eze, it also gave something back to the people who believed in him when no one else did. Queen's Park Rangers, the club that rescued him when he was on the edge of quitting. His parents, his family and all of his friends who stuck by him all of the way. So when life knocks you down, and trust me it will at points, just remember Eze, the boy from Greenwich who turned rejection into redemption. And remember, if you know someone who loves football just as much as you do, then please tell them about the Football for Kids podcast. And whether you're playing football soon, watching it on the telly or pitch side, I hope that you enjoy the game. See you next time.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.